Hi, my name's Dan. I'm from Lions Den Motorcycles, and we've brought down to the bike shed today the Dirt Racer. It started life as a Yamaha XT600, which I bought for myself years and years and years ago, essentially to ride around town on. But I took, I think, 1 or 2 trips on it and realised that this needed to be something that was taken apart. Somebody had built it really badly and it was terrifying me. So I stripped the whole thing down, really with the intention of restoring it. But as soon as I took everything off that I was going to fix or replace, a bike sort of appeared in front of me, and it was wholly different to a dirt bike. It was a cafe racer. It does sound mental because obviously the geometry of dirt bikes and cafe racers is totally different, but we put several things on this bike obviously to make it something completely different, and this was the result. It was a couple of years of me building it in my spare time, investing it in myself in between other builds, to essentially let loose on all the crazy ideas that go through my head. Because as you can see, there are some materials on this bike which are pretty controversial, and for me they work really well. Also because I love working with them. Enjoying making furniture means that I'm able to use some of those on bikes as well. So let me take you through the entire thing in detail, starting up at the front. So we knew that because it was a dirt bike, it was going to have a huge 21-inch front wheel on it. I immediately knew that I wanted to reduce that down to sports bike sizes, a more cafe racer stance, more aggressive. So I had these wheels custom built, stainless spokes, alley rims, down to 17-inch, and they're wearing some Avon, I think they're called Storm tyres, to give it that sporty look. So much had to be changed on this, as I wanted to use the suspension from a Honda Fireblade, and that's what we've got up front, as well as the stopping power from the blade. But I needed something with a double disc that worked with spokes, so we used the hub from a Triumph Tiger and the discs from that, and then we CNC'd some of our own brackets to make the Honda Fireblade calipers work with this setup. So it means you've got a huge amount of stopping power plus the performance of Honda Fireblade suspension. Obviously everybody has always loved that upside down suspension, that fork look, and I think it works really nicely on here. Moving up to the top, originally I did build a whole screen on this, and it was a few years photographed with that, but I ended up realising that I wanted to return it to a more classic look. So we just went with a simple 5-inch single headlight that tucks right in, because I wanted it to look neat, tidy, clean, and as sort of, I guess, clean as possible. Then above we've just got a single dial speedo. It's got revs on the dial and speed in the little box here, digital, which again keeps it all nice and tight. We could have gone with a front fairing, but really it just doesn't need it. Again, all of this Honda Fireblade suspension gives it a nice beefy feel. From there we made up our own clip-ons, fabricated them from scratch, and then on the clip-ons themselves are our own LDM, Lions Den Motorcycles designed switches, push-button switches, which work really nicely, taking away all that original plastic and rubbish. We've even gone as far as making our own little master cylinder pots out of solid brass, which mounted to the Honda Fireblade controls, and really left this as clean as possible, like I said, not cluttered, and giving you that tight, aggressive cafe racer feel. As we then move down to the tank, it's been heavily modified. I'm always looking for those sweeping curves when you stand from the back of the bike, and I always like a tank to almost indent inwards, and that's why we've given these the large knee indents, and it really sucks it in, gives it that line from behind, and exaggerated it with the pinstripes on the gold. The paintwork was done by Greg of Blackshuck Custom, and we've introduced, which I don't know if you can see, but if I use my phone, you can pick out the gold fleck that's inside the black, as well as the gold pinstriping. So we cut the sides out, put our own knee indents in, and gave it that totally custom look from what was originally quite a bulky tank. It's from a Suzuki, I can't even remember what we ended up using for that. Underneath is the XT600 engine. This itself has been through a full nut and bolt restoration. Everything was changed right down to the bearings. It's been big bored, it's got a Wiseco piston in it. We port and polished the ins and outs. It also dons some K&N CR racing carbs. So this thing is kind of going to go like stink because it barely weighs anything. Moving down to the bottom of the engine, we had, instead of the Yamaha logo on the cases, our own CNC'd Lionsden logo machined out of brass, wanting to pick up the golds in the theme from front to back. The engine also, like the tank, has the same gold fleck in the cases, which is a detail that people don't really see that often, but it means that when the sun hits it outside, it's just the shimmering is just incredible. That then also carries across to the frame. Again, it's black, but has that gold shimmer in it. The frame we've modified quite heavily. From here back is a totally new subframe. I added in the rails at the bottom to essentially frame the engine better and give it that kind of picture look, rather than the original, which has nothing underneath and a sump guard. From there, we've got a Honda Fireblade Suspension again, which mounts off of a heavily modified swing arm, so that the original system, which went down and underneath with all the dog legs, is now quite clean with a sports bike suspension on it. And then just above that, people ask what this is. They think that it's part of the exhaust system. But on the XT600, it obviously originally has an oil tank which mounts somewhere miles back here. And I thought for ages about how to make that work, how to make something that's pretty, that goes with the design, isn't a box, actually. And I came across the idea of, or thought that actually, why not just make something that looks like an exhaust system, but is the oil tank? So we used up some Mandrel stainless steel bends to wrap around the shock absorber and poke out from behind the seat. And obviously, talking about the seat, that's one of the main, if not the main feature of the whole build. I knew I wanted to build something that was café racer, so it had to have a classic hump type thing to it. But the wood was not what I intended originally on using. I knew I wanted to use something of a different material to metal, and then I realized that with all the furniture that I enjoy making, why not use wood? And of course, this is majorly controversial. People love or hate it. It's Marmite. They don't get why you might put wood on a bike. Personally, I say, why not? It's on amazing cars, it's on high-end speedboats, which were a big inspiration for this. That vast wood sections on the back of speedboats going across Lake Como was a big thing for me. And then because of the size of the seat, I wanted it to be easy access to the wiring. And so I spent a month just making the seat tilt on a set of bearings and a gas strut which holds it up when it's in position. As you can see from there, the wiring has been run really neatly by a guy called Richard at Motorcycle Wiring Specialists, so everything's reduced down, totally custom built wiring loom, which you barely notice until I point it out. So this rotates on those two bearings inside the wood, and then as I close it back down, it locks on a couple of magnets. That alone took about a month to figure it out. But I think the result is really amazing. And then on top of this wood, which is called Zebrano, is an epoxy resin. It's called glass cast, and you pour it on. Really, it should be poured onto something that's flat, and because this goes like that, I had to pour it over it for 9 days to be able to get enough of a thickness on it that I was happy with. It gives it that incredible gloss. It turns it from sort of much more pale wood to something really deep, and brings out those the lines of the grain. Frenched in is then a single tail and brake light, which we hand turned on the lathe with a brass housing, which tucked right inside the seat. That was a really nerve-wracking bit, because I'd made this whole thing and then I had to drill a massive hole into the backside of something that took probably a month to 6 weeks to make. I have to say I was bricking it. But it worked, and it gives it that classic look. There isn't anything that sticks out of the wood. I really love that. It tucks away from the side, and when it's lit up, it just looks stunning. It sort of lights the inside of the wood itself. We also designed these rear sets and had them CNC'd by our friend Paul at Demeanor Customs. I didn't want to use anything that was on the market already, and we needed plenty of adjustment because of the extreme angle that you'll be sitting at. But everything's custom made and connects to the Honda Fireblade brake system at the back, and on the other side a totally different system to connect to the gears. But they work really nicely. The knurled pegs themselves and levers, and just keep it nice, clean, lightweight with plenty of that adjustment. And then moving to the back end, the stainless steel exhaust system that we made from scratch ends in two wide open handmade cones, just simply welded, TIG welded, with that little turn down at the end to give it that kind of cafe racer look. I also made a aluminium hugger from scratch, which just tucks in nicely, gives it that sports bike but cafe racer look. And then just in front sits more Zebrano, where the ignition unit went. I wanted to create something that, again, something that would normally be boring. The ignition unit is just simple. Some people might hide it in the seat. I thought, why not tuck it away in some more Zebrano? And that actually opens up, slides out, and you can access the computer port, which changes your settings for the ignition. So that system just easily slots in place. And the last thing I want to just show around this side before we end at the back side of the bike is this piece, which is purely decorative, and it was just a cover for this side of the oil tank. I took some really thin 0.6mm sheets of the real wood Zebrano and bent them around an aluminium plate to follow that curve on the aluminium tank, the tube. Just as a feature, really, as a more artistic piece, because for me that's what this whole bike was about. It was about building something artistic, trying to cross over those lines between motorbike and sculpture. Again, people tend to hate that, but I love it. When we get to the very end, the rear wheel, we've got Honda Fireblade brakes at the back. Obviously the custom wheel again. This is one of the very few parts that was still XT, which is the rear hub, so that I could keep the sprocket sizes and everything. And then we've got the number plate mount, which really tucks in dangerously close to that rear wheel. But again, I wanted everything as tight as possible so that nothing was sticking out or breaking the lines of the design. And I think that's about it, really. It's been a long process making this bike. Again, it was something that I wanted to do for myself, sort of exploring what might happen if no one was holding me back, and this is the result. We would normally take this outside and start it up. I'm really sorry to say that we can't do that today. It's been on display in so many places. It's still all dry, so we're not able to at this stage. But follow us on social media, because in the future this is hopefully going to end up in somebody's home, and it will be turned on, and there you'll be able to see it running. But thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Bike Shed YouTube channel. They have got tons and tons of bikes for you to see, obviously all incredible quality. These guys have been here from the very start of the custom world, and I can't recommend enough watching what else everybody else is building on this channel. So check it out.